You're listening to the Cavalier Connection podcast. Here are your hosts, Jeff Lowe, Jay Ballard, and Jack Lowe.
Welcome. No Jay Ballard here with us tonight. It's myself, Jack Lowe, and my dad, Jeff Lowe. How you doing tonight, Dad?
Doing good.
So we've got a special guest joining us here in just a few moments, but before we get to him, we got a couple things to knock out really quick. We want to remind you this episode is brought to you by Mintzer's University of Virginia Sportswear. Be sure to check them out at the corner in Charlottesville or the Stonefield Shopping Center or online at mintzers.com. Mintzer's has been outfitting UVA fans since 1948 with high-quality gear, from hats like one of my dad's, like the one that my dad is wearing right now, to hoodies like the one I'm wearing, shirts and quarter zips as well. With football down to one game left, the bowl game coming up Saturday, and basketball season in full swing, now's the perfect time to grab the latest gear and make sure you look the part. If it's orange and blue, Mintzer's has you covered. With that being said, we're going to get to our Mintzer's moment of the week. We already showed it once, but it's too good not to show again. A man by the name of Jakari White, who broke his wrist on this play, but hopefully he's going to be okay. This is his dunk once again against Maryland, our Mintzer's moment of the week.
Road against the number 23 team in the country.
You can't give up a dunk out of a timeout.
Are you kidding me? I mean, to Jakari White's credit, that's a heck of a move right there, man. But you can't give that up. I'm sorry. That's fundamental transition defense. Stop the ball. I mean, my goodness. He took it to another level.
Where's Solomon Washington?
Wonderful and one dunk by Jakari White. The color commentator did not sound very happy with the Maryland defense. She wasn't very happy at all, as a matter of fact. But it doesn't take away from the play that Jakari White made. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, unfortunately broke his his left wrist on it when he hit the ground. That player is, I guess they don't really do posters much anymore. But if they did, he was posterized. It'd be something to put in the background here. A nice postering by Jakari White. Hate to see him go down though. That's a tough. So fun to watch. And I don't know. Of course, there's no timetable for his return other than I saw Coach Odom said they expect him to return this season. So, but that's a tough loss. But boy, that was a dunk in style for sure.
That was a great dunk. I think he'll be back before too long. I don't think it's going to be anything terrible. It does suck that he had to go out, but it doesn't take away from, wow, what a dunk. Putting it on the old rivals of the Terps of Maryland. So great team to do it against. But as we get ready to welcome Tavon into the show, we want to remind you this interview is brought to you by A Squared Pizza. If you're craving some of the best deep dish Detroit-style pizza all around, make sure you give A Squared a call. Thick, crispy, cheesy. It's the kind of pizza you don't forget. And stop there. Check out their wings and salads to get things started or round out the meal. Support a great local small business and treat yourself right. Give A Squared Pizza a call at 434-465-2186. Again, that's 434-465-2186, and you will be glad you did. Alrighty, we would now like to welcome to the show Tavon Mason. Thanks for joining us. You were part of UVA football during a really interesting bridge era, from the tail end of Coach George Welsh to the beginning of Coach Al Groh. You played receiver, special teams, and were around some great teammates and moments. We're excited to dig into your time at Virginia and relive some of it with you. And I want to also mention the significance of that. If you had something similar to that in 2025 with two different coaches, not a chance the student athlete or the player stays in the program. A very different time, of course, back then. So it's really interesting, very different, to play with two coaches. That's just not a thing now.
Right.
But how you doing tonight, Tavon?
I'm doing good, man. How you guys doing? I appreciate y'all having me on the show and reaching out to me to be on the show.
No doubt.
Yeah,
we love having
We're
you
doing
on.
really well. Happy to have you, and really excited to talk with you this evening. Let's start before UVA. You grew up in Baltimore, correct me if I'm wrong, and just tell us about how old you were and what got you interested in playing football?
So I got started just like you said about playing with two coaches. You know, we in the nature of the portal and NIL. How I got started was just playing in the neighborhood with the older guys, which you don't see as much now because a lot of kids don't really get out to just play. You know, it's either they with a trainer or I got to go to this trainer. I got to go to this game. I got to go to this pickup. I got to go to this and this. But I grew up playing in the neighborhood. You know, I think the one up for me, I had an older brother that didn't mind me being around. Then when I went outside of the house, it was the other older brothers. So they're welcome me in to play whatever sport we was playing that day, whether it was basketball, baseball, football, whatever it was, I was welcome in. And that's kind of how I took my bumps and bruises and got that tough skin of playing with the older boys in the neighborhood. So it started in elementary school, and my very first year of playing organized football was 5th grade. And how that came to play, again, one of the older boys in the neighborhood, like another big brother, came home with his equipment on. And your dad probably had noticed when you should go in the store and get the different player uniforms, the hutch with the, you know, and but his was legit. And I'm like, man, where you get that from? You know, he said, I play with Woodlawn Rec. And I'm like, what's Woodlawn Rec? And then that started it. Ran in the house, asked my mom and dad, can they sign me up for football? And in 1990, in 5th grade, that's when I started my first year of organized football. And the crazy thing, being one of the fastest in the neighborhood, with coming into the organization late, I was the center. So that's kind of like started my I always had the love for the game, for sports in general, because of my dad and my brother, and again the older boys in the neighborhood. But it really started then with having the opportunity to actually put on equipment and go through the practices and go through the hard workouts.
Yeah, let's escalate into your high school career. What was that like, and when did you really realize that things were starting to take off?
It was a slow process. I went in as a freshman, was deemed to start as a quarterback on JV. I had like a nagging injury from youth sports, a hip flexor. So rolling through my 9th grade year and had the hip flexor injury, and it kind of put me on the back burner. But the silver lining in that, though, Jeff and Jack, was my mentor. So happy he went to that other school, the Turkey school. But my mentor, Mr. Keon Carpenter, he was graduating. We didn't have another quarterback to move up to varsity, and Coach Scriv, my high school, would have been my varsity. He was my varsity coach. You know, one day I'm standing outside of the school, and he just asked me to throw the ball, and I just threw it. And thought we're gonna move you up to varsity the final year, my 10th grade year. So I was blessed to be able to bump up as a sophomore to play varsity. And we was a heavy run team, just like my early years with UVA, run. We had talented backs, a nice O-line, and my coach was run. No matter how many you put in the box, he was gonna run the ball. And I kind of earned my stripes to get on the defense by playing scout offense, wide receiver. And that it blossomed from that to my junior years, when everything kind of took off, getting noticed by colleges, getting noticed around, in Maryland, the state of Maryland, for my gameplay, into my senior year, where it really blew up and exploded to, being nominated as Player of the Year, the Baltimore Sun's Player of the Year, amongst all athletes in the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. So it was a great 4 years to be able to witness that, not only playing football, but played basketball, played track. I had a head coach and Coach Scrib that after the season, his main message was, you're not going home to sit down, figure out something to do, whether you're going to come lift weights, you're going to run indoor track, you're going to play basketball. After that, okay, then you got to pick up a spring sport. So he was real big on that.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. That's kind of almost a lost thing now in 2025. You hate to see, there's still some athletes that are playing dual sports, but there's so many. I mean, they're specializing very early, like as a kid and youth. And it's sad to see. I mean, I get why kids and parents do that, but I agree with you. I think just being year round, playing multiple sports is the way to do it. But moving on, correct me if I'm wrong. You had some pretty big offers,
Yeah.
like Miami, Notre Dame, Florida State. What ultimately led to UVA feeling like home?
It wasn't far away. University of Miami was really far away, and I wanted to be somewhere where my parents, family, and friends can come down, and it doesn't cost a lot to get there. From Baltimore, Charlottesville is about 3.5 hours, and I really didn't take all of my visits. So what I would say to any of the young guys, young ladies that are going through this process of recruiting, get someone in your corner that can teach you a lot of things. So I didn't really have the kind of like the super mentor to say, hey, take your visits just to see everything or how this process works. So that's one thing I did take on once I left UVA, to tell a lot of younger guys. But when I got down to Charlottesville, just on that visit, it just felt right, from being recruited. Coach Powell was my receiver coach, but the coach that recruited me was Coach Shudell, O-line coach at that time when I was coming out. And the way they recruited me, and it's a lot different now because we in the age of technology. You really don't even have to leave your office to recruit, but then you had to get on the road to recruit. We had to send out the VHSs. We had to, get into the letters, like little postcards. I know Christmas break coming up, hope you and your family have a good time, So just how that family atmosphere, even, up to Coach Welsh and, coming in and how he received. So that was like huge to me. And another big plus to it was meeting now best friend Arlen Harris. We were roommates on a visit, and just that connection with him and being around the campus, we both decided to commit that same day on our visit.
Yeah, and speaking of when you got to Charlottesville, and we've talked to some players who played for Coach Welsh, and there's always some great stories out there. Ball Hawks told us a few, and it's just really entertaining to listen to. But what was Coach Welsh like on a day-to-day basis, especially for like offensive players or receivers? And do you have any good Welsh stories?
Oh yeah, the first story I'll tell you, and I'll let you know how he was. But I remember, I don't know, a lot of people don't really know, but Coach Welsh did not like lightning. He did not like thunder. And I remember one good story. It's starting to pick up out there, and Jeff, I know you know how crazy the weather is in Charlottesville. It can rain for like an hour, and then the next hour is like 80 degrees outside. Well, this day it flipped. So we're on the field and we're going at it. And we all look around, and Coach Welsh standing on a step right in front of our practice locker room, and he started yelling at us, "It's lightning, get off the field." And he had already ran off the field. So we're like, "Coach, you going to leave us out there to get on that helmet?" He just gave us that grin that he would do on the sideline. It was hilarious that he was already gone. The next thing we know, we hear this high-pitched voice yelling at us.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing? It's lightning. Get off the field.
I love the voice.
Yeah. Ball Hawk does a really good impersonation. That reminds me a lot of what he does. He
says,
really
Christ.
That was his thing. And he just ride around his golf cart, and he'll sit there, and you don't know what he's thinking because he's just staring. And then he call you in the office, he'd shoot out a little joke, and then go about your business. But he was for us as a group, all the players that he recruited. He loved on us hard. He coached us hard, and wanted us to give his 100% and give his all. I think that's when he passed. It hit a lot of us because of the type of guy he is and was. And you'll never think that type of guy will pass, no matter the age. In our eye, we think this dude is just, like a Superman type guy. So yeah, he would get in on the practices. He saw something that looked a little funny. He'd make his make it mention, but he would definitely let the coaches coach. And if he wanted to talk to us, he'd come talk to
us. So when you were playing for him, what made him special in the moment?
Just his calmness, and no matter what the circumstance was. And I think due to his background, especially military, of coaching and just being in for so long, he knew how the game would go, and I also believe he knew at some point he would have to step back because it was evolving, like we see now, like Jack mentioned earlier, how it was evolving. At some point, you see the Nick Sabans and a lot of those guys are backing off because it is kind of like that changing of the guard. But in what made it good, it was just his understanding, like, okay, we're going to put our best guys in, and no matter what, we want to go 100%. And at the end, he would take, whether it was the blame on the good side or blame on the bad side, he all took that in. And then when we got back to the McHugh Center, okay, let's see how we can change this up, evaluate it, change it up, and make it better for the next game.
Yeah, so I know you played with some really good quarterbacks, and I think there was an overlap. You were catching passes from Dan Ellis and then maybe Matt Schaub. What was it like playing with some of those guys?
Shoot, I'd take it even back. My freshman year, I was with Aaron Brooks, so I got to see Aaron Brooks my redshirt freshman year, and it was amazing to see all of those guys play. Aaron Brooks, prototype quarterback back then with his height, but then you have, like you said, a Dan Ellis. He wasn't a prototype, typical height, but his leadership in knowing what was going to happen in that moment or even before the moment was amazing. And he just played loose, and played like, hey, I've done this for a while. And especially with his background of coming from where he came back from in Downingtown and winning state championships and just having that kind of like that moxie was insane. Same way with Matt Shaw, and we also throw in there Bryson Spinner, also caught passes from Bryson Spinner as well. So, UVA has had a history of talented quarterbacks, from your drop backs, your ones that could run and throw, and also that can kind of take that lead without needing to look to the sideline a lot. And Dan definitely was that. And Aaron Brooks was, Shaw was, and also Dan Ellis. Then you sprinkle in a Thomas Jones, Antoine Womack, so you got those type of guys in the backfield, and Kevin Coffey on the edge, Terrence Wilkins I got to play with, Casey Crawford at tight end. So these guys that you look through the UVA history, man, it was insane on the talent that we had.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and Aaron Brooks, I didn't even realize, but that you play with him too. But that's my favorite quarterback of all at Virginia. And the amount of confidence he played with was unreal. He was a confident quarterback. And I like to tell the story. We ran into him at a UVA basketball game some years ago. And I just, I get starstruck because, I was a teenager at that time. And I'm like, and I said something to him. I said, greatest quarterback in UVA history. He said, show you right. And
that's how he moved. He was real calm and just smooth and collective and just went with the flow. I think that's another thing to answer to your question, Jack, why I picked UVA was just their personalities. It wasn't that I'm this guy and you this guy. My redshirt freshman year again, Poindexter was there. And you would have thunk that this guy, man, he would have been the first round, coming out that year, but he stayed because of shoulder surgery. No, he was a regular dude. You can walk in the weight room and he'd be like, hey, Tay, come over and help me out. And I'm like, who, me? I'm a freshman, dude. I watched you in practice. I seen you my redshirt freshman year at 98 when they went down and beat Auburn. I seen you, how you flip a switch from being a nice, cool guy to when you touch the grass, boom, it was like maniac time. And you picking me to come help work with you. So that's how a lot of those guys were. Aaron Brooks was the same way. One story that stuck out to me is Adrian Burnham that played alongside Anthony Poindexter after my redshirt freshman summer. He went around and was asking us, hey, so what you doing this summer? Of course, me, I'm going back home. I'm getting out of here. And he just shook his head like veterans do. All right. And just walked off. And me and I looked at each other like, hey, what do you mean by that? Like, he didn't say anything. He didn't fuss at us. He didn't cuss at us. It was that if you want to play here, it's not a such thing as a vacation. Bring your butt back down here, get involved with the playbook. So that's what I did. I came back down that summer, and I remember seeing him when I walked in the locker room, and he was like, hey, rookie, glad to see you back down here. I think that's what it was. Then was that they took that leadership and that ownership of the team. And yeah, the coaches had the titles, but they really put it in your Aaron Brooks, your Andrew Burnham, your Anthony Poindexter, Antonio Dangle, Patrick Kearney, all those guys. Like, oh no, if we want to win, we need y'all back down here this summer, working, sweating, and working out. We can go to that next level.
Yeah. So, beginning your college career, your first touchdown came on ESPN against Wake Forest. Did that kind of feel like your welcome to college football moment? And if it didn't, what was your welcome to college football moment?
That was my I'm here moment. But I think my first welcome to college moment, we were in practice, and I played running back also in high school. So for scout team, they put me at the running back, and I always joke with my guy that came with me, Bush Jefferson. He was a old lineman, and we going against the first defense, and you got that assassin at safety, number 3, and we ran a power ISO. And I'm at the running back position. Butch pulls the wrong way, opens the lane wide open, and just just smacked me. He just kissed me. And the funny thing was he picks me up, and he's like, "Man, you gotta put some rocks in your damn pocket, bud." Patted me on the helmet, sent me back to the huddle. So that was like my welcome to college moment. But that touchdown, it was huge because we kept working on that. And it was a Sally reverse. I remember it was Sally left, and we kept working on it. And to me, Jack, I'm thinking, I ain't gonna never call this play. We got Thomas Jones, we got Terrence Wilkins, you're gonna give me the ball, freshman, a redshirt freshman the ball. And sure enough, coach called it, and it worked like clockwork. And everybody flowed with Thomas on a stretch play and came back around. And Jeff, you probably saw who was leading me on there. Dan Ellis was leading me with the block and walked right in. It was like I didn't know what to do, Jack. Like I was just like, I know my parents was in the stands. So my dad was gonna record back home, and I get to the sideline and the camera's on me. And my dad had told me, I think what made it that much better is when my dad went home and said, "Guess what play was the play to lead to the commercial break?" And it was that reverse. So after that, it was like, all right, I got it. It's time to roll. I just keep looking for more opportunities, more chances. And my next chance came in the Maryland game, which we needed, going at the end of that season that we needed to make it to the bowl game and to put Maryland out was, again, that teamwork, that teammate, objective. Kevin Coffey just ran back-to-back pass routes. So he like, Mace, go in. Coach Powell was like, "No, we about to call a corner route for it." He was like, "No, Mace can do it." Like, "Man, I'm tired." Put me in, and I got a corner route on the sideline against Larry Sanders, which was supposed to be like a top 10 DB. And that was my second touchdown. What made that even that much better, it was back home at the University of Maryland where I was from. So, again, it goes back to that teammate and teamwork atmosphere that was built, especially, with being a receiver in that receiver room.
Nice. I love that story from practice to your welcome to college football moment. This is also before Guardian caps were ever a thing, huh? and you're in practice.
Things Guardian cap. And Poindexter, he never buckled his helmet up. He had 1, 2, that one buckle, and he left this one unbuckled. And if you was a referee and said something about it, he would cut you out because he did it at the Auburn game. He like, buckle your helmet. And I ain't buckling no damn helmet up. He kept playing with it. That's how Anthony Poindexter played. Like you said, there was no Guardian cap. There was no, hey, keep your head up and see what you hit. No, we was running through. And that's exactly what Poindexter did. He ran right through me in practice and picked me back up. Like I was like a paperweight. And send me back to the huddle.
Pretty terrifying. You just mentioned Poindexter, but you played alongside a lot of all-time greats. A few names like Billy McMullen, Terrence Wilkins, Thomas Jones, Antoine Womack. What did you learn by playing alongside guys like that?
And I even throw in, and we mentioned his name earlier, Mar Hawkins, Demetrius Dotson, those guys, coming in and, you being a new guy and just like how it works with the drafts with NBA, NFL, all that stuff. You got a guy coming in, they draft this guy. So now you got to kind of battle for your spot. Me getting recruited And I don't think a lot of people understood my class coming in. It was only 16 of us, I think. 12 to 16, because they had put a lot into getting Ronald Carey. So they just say, okay, we'll be done. And when he, went out to decide to go to UNC, we were left with probably the smallest class in school history. So we did come with a chip on our shoulder because we had to still had to prove. So it was, again, amazing being a new face in that type of receiver room. My freshman year, like you said, Terrence Wilkins, Billy McMullen came later my next year because he had to go to VMI, but then you still have Kevin Coffey, those guys that it wasn't a thing of egos or anything like that, or nah, you're not going to get this rep. No, they were helping you out. So to see them do that, that's what made it comfortable to be at UVA and aware and shout out why, whether we're doing good or doing bad, because I didn't have no ill wills from any players there. Even on the defensive side, they still do the same thing. They help you out. You see them guys out, they talk to you. You can ask them anything. Another person, Thomas Jones, was a big person you can go talk to. And he was like the top of the top. He was even higher than Poindexter, but off the field, is a regular guy. So it was good being in the locker room with those guys and being in the meeting room with the receiver crew, and I played against Billy in high school. So my junior year in high school, we traveled down to Richmond and played Henrico County, and it was the Warriors versus the Warriors. So I actually indirectly met Billy my junior year in high school, and we played against each other down there in high school. So, and Billy told me when he came to visit with VMI for one of our spring practices, that's the reason why he came, because I was there and he came down. And that made it even special to play opposite. Him being at the X, me being at the Z, made it that much better.
No, it's amazing the talent and all these names you're naming coming through Virginia. It's unreal. I mean, there was always a stud running back, from Tiki right to Thomas Jones. Yeah. And Tiki was so great. And they were like, no, guess what? Thomas Jones is going to be better. I mean, the progression and the quarterbacks and the receiver room, all these NFL guys, it's just unreal. It was a lot of fun as a fan.
Yeah.
I say, so I know you weren't just a receiver. You also contributed on special teams, including – 100-yard kickoff return against Georgia Tech.
Yes,
how
sir.
much pride did you take in that role?
My thing was, and how I was coached, was whenever you get an opportunity, you take advantage of the opportunity. And I always wanted to do it, whether being redshirt freshman, had to run down on kickoff. Me and Arlen would swap each kickoff to run down on kickoff at redshirt freshman year. Being a gunner on punt team. Whatever it was. I want to do this kick return. It was just something about kick return that just kind of took my heart in a good place to be able to run the ball and gain and also to help the offense start at a better place. My goal to myself was 30 plus, so that year, that probably my redshirt junior, redshirt senior year, I didn't start the first half of the season. Coach Grove went with Alvin Pearman. And I went to Coach Brown. I actually went to Mike Grove, and he asked me during the UNC game, he's like, you want to return? I said, yeah. And I said, listen, Coach, you put me at kick return, I get us to the 30 plus every return. And he actually vouched for me, went to Coach Brown. They got into a little shouting match, and I went in, and sure enough, on that leading to the last drive, I got to about the 40-yard line. Each time, we played Florida State at UVA, it was 30 plus. I just took pride in helping the offense start in a better position and also really studying it. Not just, okay, I'm going to return it, catch the ball and just run, but actually going in on my own, watching, learning our kick return, but also watching how the other team's kickoff team ran down. So that game in Georgia Tech, it's funny, my dad, and rest in peace to my dad, but he was in the stands, and Jaton Evans' brother was in the stands, and they would go back and forth just talking and cheering and stuff. And my dad had told me his Jaton brother had said, he's like, I don't know, Mr. Mason, I got a feeling about this one. I don't know. And caught it 2 yards in the end zone, and it just went just full speed and ran it back. But it was just crazy because I didn't know what my dad and my mom saw, that when I ran that bat that popped up on the Jumbotron, that I had jumped in the first in the ACC with kick return. And that's only starting probably after 5 games, into the to that season. But I just love that challenge and being able to run, but also be able to set the offense up better than what we could if I took a knee or I fair caught it.
That's a really good story. So Jay, who's not with us, and myself, we were there in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s in Scott Stadium, and it's changed a lot through the years. Back then, it didn't seat quite as many, but it was always rocking. Can you talk to us about what it was like playing there when you were at UVA?
Oh yeah, it was starting as a kind of like a young pup, and the guys were telling me, because that year, I know you remember, Jeff, when they started to close in the back of Scott Stadium, we was on a road leading up to that Wake Forest game, and I would ask the guys, like, how is it, for the home games, because I've seen it from red shirt side, when you wasn't dressed, you can sit in the stands, or sometimes they let you in the sideline. They don't do like now where you can sit on the sideline with your jersey. If you were coach, that was probably a Coach Welsh thing. But if you wasn't dressed, we don't need all that on the sideline. He wanted those guys in to be able to lock in. So when they kept telling, like, man, it's crazy. Like, when we come out the tunnel, you're gonna see a guy run out on a horse and blah blah blah, and you're gonna see all sea of orange and blue. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I actually remember running out for Wake Forest and actually stopped. Kind of like that, oh shit moment, like, wow, this is crazy, this, like you said, I'm in college now, to see that the lawn filled up, behind the Jumbotron, see the student section going crazy, and just seeing, like, say, that sea of orange and blue, it like triggers something good, like, wow, I'm actually here. I was one of those guys they selected to come to this university. So it was insane, but it made it comfortable as I got used to the atmosphere of being able to see it come out and playing to the crowd, and just being that much amped, and just wanting to do it for the fans, that come there every Saturday, to see us play, and to make sure I give my best effort.
Yeah, I could only dream of running out that tunnel one time. So you were there during the transition from Coach Welsh to Coach Al Groh. What was that change like, from a player's perspective?
Yeah, it was definitely different. You went from a college guy to an NFL guy, and, coming in for a lot of us guys that's in the Welsh era, when a new coach come in, their technique and their vision is going to be totally different. Coach Welsh was a huge win Virginia guy. That's why he won the Tidewater area. He's cleaned up in Hampton. I'm bringing those guys in, keeping them with us. It was tough at first because Coach Groh did get away from that to more up north, the northern guys, the northern recruits. So we did, for a few years, did lose that battle to Virginia Tech on keeping some of the Virginia guys in, which I felt, of learning. Virginia, that was our backbone. If you can win that area, you're going to have beyond dogs on your team. Right. So that was like a tough part of though my year at UVA, because we had that huge transition, and losing those guys to other schools was very tough. But at the same time, being able to get that kind of like scheduling from like an NFL perspective, it just having to adjust to a new style, and of course not being with Coach Welsh.
Yeah. What you mentioned the change from a college guy to kind of an NFL guy, and that could be the answer to this next question. But I'm curious what you thought was different about the approach between Coach Groh compared to Coach Welsh in terms of structure and expectations.
I think the difference in the structure I think it was a different in the scheduling. More morning practices, but to us, we're college guys. So it's at the end of the day, in order to stay on that field, we still had to hold up a certain GPA. We still got to get to class. So at first it did wear a lot of us out, because we went from having that college-minded coach that understood, okay, if we do have a morning practice, it'll be during the off season, during winter workouts, where we get up early in the morning. We don't have full padded practice going into that afternoon. It's just, okay, we're going to work y'all in that morning. Then we'll get your lift in. You got your class, and then, okay, boom, that's it. Coach Groh having to adjust to being in college where this is not our daytime job. Whereas in the NFL, that's what they did. It's football, and especially being at a school as a UVA, which holds a high standard as far as academics, you had to kind of almost towing that line of, man, I'm wore out, but I know I still got to maintain this and I still want to get my degree. So that was like the biggest thing for a lot of us, is just that adjustment to having to diverge from being on like in a college schedule to now we're trying to manage both of those.
Yeah. Was there a moment that you thought this program is turning a corner, especially with younger guys coming in like Matt Schaub, who's, obviously one of the better quarterbacks ever put on a UVA uniform?
Yeah, I mean, we seen just like your dad said, like that early on, because I can remember my redshirt freshman year going in Georgia Tech, we were number 6 in the country. So it just the talent, and also you pair that with the coaching to take a UVA team that prior to that team, it's probably like the early 90s. You think about the guys from the early 90s, the Slades, all of those guys, the Moores, you know what I mean? It was like a little flow. It was like even kill, like flatline till my redshirt freshman year where it spiked. We go down, take care of Auburn. You know what I mean? We rolling. You know what I mean? Like to be able to see these guys in practice on a red shirt level was insane. On the defensive side, you take a Patrick Kearney that had a lacrosse scholarship, walked on a football, get a full scholarship. He go 30th overall to the Atlanta Falcons. So he was one of the defensive ends. Antonio Dingle, Anthony Poindexter. You got Antoine Harris at one corner, the Stoops at another corner. Sproul at another corner. Safeties was legit. Linebackers was legit. This was like it was like right there for the taking. And we were able to go back down to another bowl game. The Peach Bowl that year against Georgia, which we should have won, and we were up big on them. But I think that was a big turning point. And then after I left, just seeing it, the Matt Schaubs, the Heath Millers, how dominant that Billy Mack played, continue to dominate, adding, the Alvin Pyramids, we were just a couple of, probably a couple positions away from kind of like doing that 98 season again. And it just, just push and pull, you know what I mean? And I think what we saw this year could kind of like give a little of that sprinkle, what we saw throughout those years, and give like a glimpse of hope. It just, the tough part, like you said, Jack, is we're no longer in the years of I'm gonna ride this out, or if you got to transfer, you got to go through a whole process. It's not like that anymore. It's now like, I can wake up tomorrow. I don't want to play for Coach Jack no more. I'm going over here with Coach Jeff. He got a better blah blah blah. And I'm gone. I'm in the win. So I think those days of finally having those hard-nosed guys that love the sport and going to really roll for that school, those days are over. Because even me, I had an opportunity to, if I wanted to transfer because I had one more year, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. UVA gave me a chance. I'm doing UVA. You know what I mean? That this loyalty, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Yeah. And for a while, up until a couple of years ago, even with the transfer, with the whole process, you couldn't even, you had to sit for a year too. Like if you want to play, you're not going to leave. So it's very different time. Now, you mentioned way earlier in this interview that other school, the Turkey School, and I want to talk about them for a minute here. Rivalry games hit different. Everybody knows that. Just what do you remember most about playing Virginia Tech during your time?
It was just I have a nice story. It was, I think it was Vic's last year, so it might have been my red shirt junior year. They did a mix up with the coaching staff. So the DB coach, I forgot coach's name, but he wound up being a receiver coach. And I'm playing, just got out the field. We down in Blacksburg, just got out the field and sitting on the bench talking to one of my teammates, and a AA battery fly past my head. So we look at each other, put our helmets on, strap up. So that's what made me realize that when it comes to this rivalry thing, especially in college, in the college atmosphere, it's totally different than being in a high school atmosphere. And I know some high school atmospheres are on that level, but just knowing that, you really dislike each other, or the fans really dislike you because of the colors you wear and the team who you play for. But it was amazing, though. It wasn't a scared thing. It was like, it gave a different tingle in your body when is that time. And every year, just like now, it was right after Thanksgiving. So, it made it that much special. And just like even across the United States, of seeing these other rivalries and just how much that it means and that you dive into. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm just getting to Virginia, but I jumped on board with it because that's what we ride with our team. So just the rivalry between that, just amazing. But the better part is after the fact, a lot of the guys I grew up with back home, some of them went to Virginia Tech. So every time they come around, we'll throw a little meme up there, or somebody took a meme of Antoine Womack with his little death stare and put on there. It's like, guess what week it is? And they had this meme, Choke-a-Hokey week. So that's when and then we get to talking trash to each other. Guys I know that play Virginia Tech, we get to talk trash to each other. And I think that's what makes it special, that we can continue it on. Now we're doing it in a laughable state. But, I sent one to a good friend of mine named Mike Crawford, that's from Baltimore, but he played Virginia Tech. When we beat him, I sent him a gift of just the UVA phone thumb on his what's the name? He's like, that's all right, you got it. And he sent me a picture of him and his wife sitting next to the Commonwealth Cup last year. So I sent him a picture of the one this year, and he just that's right. He put a little finger up at me. So that's the type of thing I like when it comes to like the rivalry week, and just being able to do it in that manner, and just to know, it's even more animated. And my wife can tell you when I sit here and watch it in the house, and I get throwing a couple of words out there when you're doing it good. And so those games I don't watch out in public. I watch in my living room because I don't got in my living room.
Right. Hey, thank God we got them this year.
Oh yeah. It was beautiful. And I go back because I redshirted the year that Hawk had that game-winning catch. So I actually watched it on television back home. I went home because I redshirted. But, to be able to see it throughout the year, to be able to play in it. I remember my final year at UVA, and they came to us. And when I knew, Jack, that it meant a lot, they opened the student gate, and this kid, he had his navy blue blazer on, had his button-up shirt, his khaki pants on, and he tripped on the top step and stumbled all the way down the step, hitting the wall, jumped up, and this was like, wow, face full of blood. But that's when I knew, I was like, yeah, this means something. Yeah, I love it. When you can do that, that excited just to get in, to get close. So I love the rivalry weeks.
Yeah. So after UVA, you took your shot with the NFL. What was that process like, from like the camps to tryouts, and what did you learn from that experience?
It definitely taught me that it's a business. You know what I mean? And a lot of it is a who you know type thing. So when I made my decision instead of transferring, of taking that opportunity, I don't tell a lot of people, but I tell you guys, I actually missed a call even after the draft from the Eagles, and which would have been prime real estate for me because Brian Mitchell just retired and he was that kick returner, which I was a kick returner. And they actually tried to get me to stay one more year at UVA, try to take me and Billy Mack in a kind of like a combo deal to bring both of us up to Philly. I missed a call and was able to get picked up by the Jets. But no, it's definitely a different air because you're going from ultimate love for the game to now seeing it. So you got love, but you got to see it from a business love standpoint because it's just so many interchangeable pieces. So just going up there, flying out of Charlottesville, into Pittsburgh, and they had to fly from Pittsburgh into LaGuardia, where I got picked up, and we were on Long Island, which they're in Jersey now, but we were on Long Island, and just getting into mini camp, and or what they call it rookie camp then, but mini camp, and just seeing the guys, my locker's next to Vinny Testaverde, one of the greats. You know what I mean? Look to my right and Curtis Martin there. Look this way, you got Santana Moss there. And one of my favorite receivers was Wayne Corbett. I actually had his jersey in college. And boom, he's sitting right there. So then when you get on the field and to see how this boom, 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 guys will fly around. You know what I mean? So the practices were amazing. Again, another receiving room that no egos. They teaching you ask. I asked Wayne Corbett what do you do to get around? Because I know the linebackers are a lot bigger, than in the NFL because it was a run heavy league. Not as pass heavy like they are now, but run heavy league. So you got a lot of bigger linebackers that clamp on. And he would tell me, I told Santana, my worst route or out cutting routes. I hated my back to the quarterback. What did you do to work on getting out your comebacks? I would stick at the top of my comeback. He'd pull him to the side and do it. You know what I mean? So again, go from UVA where everybody were nice and everybody, pulled you in is the same way there. You didn't get that to, Kevin Mawai. He Hall of Famer now, but he was at the Jets at that time. And one Sunday, after practice, he asked me, "Hey, what you doing tomorrow?" I'm like, "I ain't doing nothing. I mean, where can I go at? I'm staying in a dorm or hospital, so I'm not like I have a home on. Oh, you coming to practice with me and my past?" I'm like, "Huh?" Like with me? Dude, you like a multi-million-dollar, all Pro Bowl center, and you're taking me, and sure enough, met him at the facility. We went over and ate, and he gave me words of wisdom, don't run out there buying stuff right away. Because I had a 1990 Honda Accord, and he that's the same thing I did. My wife had to bend my arm to buy me something new, but do it that way. The way you're doing it is the right way to do it. So getting advice, from guys that are Pro Bowlers, that are superstars. Again, Vinny Testaverde, we had 3 times the lift during our lift month. And if I go in there, hey man, you can come work out with me. You know what I mean? So me being a nobody to me compared to them, right. And he allowed me to come lift with him. I'm on the bench with him. You know what I mean? So it was amazing, just the atmosphere for a practice. We have in the morning practice 500 to 1,000, 2,000 people at a 7:20 practice. To in the afternoon, it quadrupled the amount of people we had at a practice. We ain't even hit the preseason games yet, but you know what I mean? And you seeing Fireman Ed out there. We come running out and he's getting everybody ready. J-E-E-S, fireman helmet that's red, that's green and white. And he drove a bus up that he had painted green with white tires, gutted it out, put a refrigerator on there, sofas, allowed us to walk on there. So that's when I knew that, at UVA and in college that, fans were in it, but being up there and you got those historic programs, clubs like the Jets, your Cowboys, your Steelers and that, but being up there, no matter what we did, they were diehard Jet fans and they will be out there to back. So that was crazy.
I know that had to be some awesome experiences. Did you have an NFL team you rooted for growing up or that you root for now?
Oh yeah, being a Baltimore kid, prior to being to the Ravens coming to Baltimore, I was a Steelers fan because I just like that. I like the way that defense played.
Okay.
And when the Ravens came, of course, I switched over to the Ravens, to the home team, and I still root for the Jets. They gave me an opportunity to go up there and to be on the team. So I root hard for my Ravens, and I root for the New York Jets. I try to catch them, when I get an opportunity.
Some good defensive of organizations there too.
Oh yeah.
So no Redskins / Commanders for your area.
No, so it's funny because my family was cut down the middle. They all from DC. My dad's side from DC. My mom's side that way to the Baltimore, but they all grew up in that Southern Maryland area. So I got family on my mom's side and my dad's side. Some are Cowboy fans and some are Redskin fans, like the true Redskin fans. Right. So you can only imagine.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's who
parties went.
Yeah, that's our team. That's been our team forever, all my life. So
and I watched it. I love them. The 90s. I got to see them play. All the way up to now. I love them, and I like that we're adding the Ravens. They could come and play the preseason game and basically really be down the street from each other right off of 95, which we were about like 45 minutes apart. But I would love watching them in the 90s. All the way through the 90s, even in the early 2000s. Just a great road, up 95 and down 95. But again, it was another team, just to being in the area that was just great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit on the personal side, you wrote a children's book called Tavon Does It All. What sparked the idea to write a book for kids?
The person that helped me, Miss Ashley Chesney, she the one we connected on Instagram through my foundation page that I was running, and she just asked me, have I written one? I was like, I never thought about writing one. So I wrote an ebook prior to that. It's like a 60-day of promise, an ebook, just to help families promote families being active, and when she put the idea, we just started bouncing ideas off each other and came up with Tavon Does It All. And it was centered around the things I was doing in the community, the slipper drives for the children at the hospital. I push academics. Wherever I was asked to come speak or booked to come speak, I would talk about the football side very little, but put more emphasis on the academics because a lot of the kids thought, okay, I can just go ahead and play, and don't think that the academics have played a major part that won't get you on the field or on the court, wherever it is that your sport is. So I really push the academics, again, the slippers, and just being nice, to other people, you know what I mean? And the book, we just took it and personified it to make it come alive, you know what I mean? To where, after the game, we won a championship. And all of a sudden, everything in my locker started coming out the locker. The slippers started dancing on the field. The report card ran on the field. So it was all the things that I promote when I would go around and talk. And we also hit added something to the book by adding a coloring book, a built-in coloring book to it. You know what I mean? And it was always, that self-motivation, you know what I mean? Aim high, you know what I mean? Just motivating yourself, to push to get to where I was. And wanting to be that kind of like that voice that I saw it when I got to high school with Keon, but if a former player would come in to talk to us, I would have loved that. You know what I mean? So I wanted to be that spark for a lot of kids that wanted to play, but also needed that extra push. So, we wrote that. And then not too long ago during the pandemic, me and my good friend Joel Gamble, a former NFL player from Baltimore, we created a series called the Justice Duo, where we took on a superhero role where we actually, our NFL jersey, he played with the Titans, the Eagles, and the Browns. We kind of like found our jerseys in the sandbox, and what we would put the jerseys on, and we had transformed the superheroes. But we took on, we'd take like real current issues and made them into people because a lot of the kids now deal with adult type issues. So we made them into real life issues, but we made it into a comic book. So it always was a thing of giving back in the sense of pushing the literacy factor. That was real big for me in my foundation, because I would do reading tours at the libraries back home throughout the summer, where I would go and read to the kids, but would also do exercise in the library as well to promote reading, but also promote being fit. So man, it was different, but I liked it because of how the kids grabbed a hold onto it.
That's awesome stuff.
Oh, that's great to hear, and how all that came about. Fast forward to today, what's keeping you busy right now?
Coaching, still coaching. I'm actually living in Georgia now. My wife and I and my family moved down here about 4 years ago. So teaching, doing PE. I'm coaching football. I dove into wrestling. That was like new on my resume. Never did in my life, but got to a high school and down here in Georgia. You know, when you coach and work in the high school, they want you to take on a second sport. So the high school I was at, they asked if I'd take over the wrestling program. So took over the wrestling program for 3 years, and now the school I'm at now, Northside, I did football, and I was back in the track. So that and just the family, you know, my youngest son, not my youngest son, but my son TJ, he made his middle school team. My youngest son Aiden's going to get back into baseball in the new year, and he's going to have his first year of youth football. So again, you know, coaching. Still doing things to make sure I promote the kids and help the kids who I work with.
That's great.
Keep some of those Georgia boys from going to Georgia and send them up to Charlottesville for us.
Oh yeah, I definitely push that.
That's great. Final question for you. We really appreciate your time tonight, Tavon.
Yeah.
When you think about your legacy at UVA, what do you hope fans and former teammates remember most about Tavon Austin?
Tavon Mason.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
He said Tavon Austin accidentally. Yeah, that's a former NFL player too.
Oh yeah.
That's my apologies.
Hometown boy, Baltimore kid. Yeah, but I think the biggest thing in my legacy was just working. Be willing to work hard and do whatever, you know, for the team. Because I actually had to do that my red shirt freshman year. Coach Welsh cut it in half. I played receiver the first half, and on the back end of spring ball, he put me on the defensive side. So being a team person, being a valuable teammate, and my biggest thing of always being there when needed, you know. So I would like that as my legacy of being a great dad and just a great teammate. And more than just football, being that friend off the field. You know, I still stay in contact with a lot of the guys throughout the year. I think that is heavily needed, you know, after playing a sport. And once you not in that moment of where everything is scheduled for you, how do you continue to move on? So just being that friend and can be that air for teammates if they need it.
That's really great. Tavon, we really appreciate your time tonight. Great to hear some of your stories and what you've got going on now. And we wish you luck the rest of the way.
I appreciate you guys for having me on. Y'all have a great holiday.
You too. That's going to wrap us up tonight. Huge thanks again to Tavon Mason, not Tavon Austin. That wide receiver is just embedded into my brain for some reason. But Tavon Mason, great to hear from, great to hear stories, and what he's doing on a personal level too.
Yep, nope, it was fun, and I enjoy reliving those golden years for me going to UVA football. So I really appreciate his time.
That's going to wrap us up tonight. We really appreciate all of you for listening or watching, whatever you may be doing. Don't forget that if you're on YouTube, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify now, The Cavalier Connection, and vice versa. If you're on Spotify or Apple, you can check us out on YouTube, The Cavalier Connection, and follow us on X at Hoos Podcast, Instagram at _Cavalier_Connection_, and all the other places, YouTube and anything where you can find it, as well as thecavalierconnection.com. All your articles keep you up to date. And that's going to wrap us up tonight. Go Hoos.
Go Hoos.